At Thanksgiving, I heard my mother say, "Marens kids eat first. Britts boys can wait for crumbs." My sons sat on the floor with paper napkins and dry sandwiches, while my blonde nieces devoured roast turkey, mac and cheese, and pumpkin pie at the formal table. I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. I just scooped up my boys and walked out into the bitter November wind. But within minutes, my phone was blowing up, with screaming, begging, and threats. They had no idea I was about to expose every secret they'd buried for years, and I was taking them all down with it. Let me rewind. My name is Britt Dorsey. I'm 33, a marketing director living in Scarsdale, New York. And until that night, I still believed blood made you family. I was wrong. Want more stories like this? Hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, have you ever had to cut off family for the sake of your kids? Because what happened next will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty. Part 2. Backstory and emotional fallout. It started when I got my first paycheck at 16 from a grocery store in White Plains. My mother, Janine, said, "Real adults help with bills." So I handed her $40 from every week's check. At first, I felt proud, grown up, responsible, but it never stopped, even after I got my degree. Even after I was managing six-figure marketing campaigns in Manhattan. Every time I earned more, their emergencies got bigger. Root canal for dad, $1,800. My sister Marin's busted Lexus, $2,600. Leaking roof before Christmas, $5,000. They didn't even ask anymore. They expected it. I was the golden daughter, not because they loved me more, but because I earned more. My husband, Jonah, a financial analyst, once said gently, "Britt, when's the last time any of them helped you with anything non-financial?" I brushed it off. They love me, just in their own way. But it was a lie I wanted to believe. Because the truth hurt too much. Part 3. Red flags revealed. It got worse after Jonah, and I had our boys, Isaac and Roman. Both biracial, with big brown eyes and curly hair that Janine never learned how to brush properly. At every family cookout, every birthday, there were whispers. "Aren't you worried they'll be confused in mostly white schools? Mixed kids have such unique challenges." Jonah heard it all. He said nothing for me. Until the day I came to pick up our kids early from Janine's, and what I saw made my blood freeze. Isaac and Roman were on the floor eating cheese slices off paper towels, while Marin's girls sat at the dining room table with plates of hot lasagna and garlic knots. My sons were 6 and 8, but they already looked like they'd learned to expect less. "Why aren't they at the table?" I asked. Mom barely looked up. "Oh, sweetie, there wasn't enough for everyone. The girls are growing fast." But the pot on the stove was half full. This wasn't about food. This was about rank. And my sons, they were always ranked last. Part 4. Escalation and strategic revenge. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I just walked out with both boys holding my hands. And then I spent 3 weeks building a plan so perfect, they'd never recover. I called my accountant, Regina, and asked her to dig through 8 years of payments, wires, loans, receipts. Regina called me back 2 days later and said, "Britt, you've given them $142,000. That's without even counting the undocumented stuff. That's 2 Ivy League tuitions, or our dream cabin in the Catskills, or a full down payment on a second home." Next, I called a lawyer, asked about my legal responsibility. "You're not legally obligated to give them a cent," she said. "Stop today and you owe no explanation." I looked at Jonah across the dinner table. He nodded. "They've been draining you, Britt, and I've stayed quiet for too long." Part 5. The cutoff. I moved fast. I removed myself from the mortgage on their house, canceled every auto payment, cut off Marin's car insurance. No more tuition help for her daughter's private ballet school. No more gas money. No more emergency credit card. First came the frantic texts. "Britt, sweetheart, the account didn't go through this month. Must be a bank error." "There's no error, Mom," I replied. "I've stopped all financial support, permanently." Then came the calls. "How could you do this to us? You've ruined us. You're being vindictive." I stayed silent. Because I had just begun. A week later, Jonah forwarded me an email from my dad. Subject line, "Let's talk, just us." Apparently my father, who'd never once invited Jonah for coffee in 8 years, wanted to clear the air. Jonah agreed to meet him at a cafe in Yonkers. He came home with a stunned look. He apologized, Britt, like a real apology, said he was ashamed of how they treated you, and me, and the boys. I didn't know whether to believe it, but I said nothing. Then Marin showed up at my office. In tears. You ruined my life, she spat. I can't pay my mortgage, I had to pull Lily out of ballet. You know she was supposed to audition for the youth showcase in December. I stared at her. Calm, steady. Maybe next time you'll think twice before telling my sons they were born to eat scraps. She went pale. You heard that? All of it. She stormed out sobbing, but I didn't feel bad, not even a little. Because revenge doesn't always look like screaming. Sometimes it's quiet, methodical, unshakable. Part 7. Surprising allies and personal power. A month later, Jonah's mom invited us to stay at her place in Beacon for the weekend. She cooked with Isaac and painted pumpkins with Roman, and she pulled me aside with tears in her eyes. Your boys are amazing, and you're doing everything right. Don't ever let anyone make them feel small. I realized then, I did have family. Just not the kind I was born into. Then came the biggest twist of all, a letter, handwritten, from Janine. Brittany, it began, losing your money made me see how much I lost you long before. She admitted they'd treated Jonah like an outsider. That they used me, that they favored Marin's kids because they looked like family. That they'd been wrong, all of them, but most shocking, she attached a check for $25,000. I can't repay all of it, she wrote. But this is a start. I didn't cash it, but I kept the letter. Part 8. The final reunion. 6 months later, we met at a diner in White Plains, neutral ground. Everyone paid their own bill. And for the first time ever, my sons were greeted first. Janine hugged them both. Dad asked about Roman's science fair project. Marin was quiet but respectful. No snide comments. No slights. And definitely no peanut butter sandwiches. As we walked to the parking lot, Isaac tugged my sleeve. Mom, they were nice today. I smiled. Yeah, baby, they're learning. And then I looked back at the diner window, at my parents washing their own dishes at the table, dividing the check. They had downsized their home, lost their maid, sold their car. But they had earned a second chance, not through guilt, but through change, and I got something better than money. I got my power back. 3 months after the diner meetup, I was at a charity gala in Manhattan for a nonprofit that supports single working mothers. Guess who I ran into? Elise Bennett, the head of a local hiring board for public education grants. Oh my God, Britt, she said, hugging me. I didn't know you were on the board of the Future Equity Initiative now. I nodded. I just joined. Diversity policy means a lot to me. Elise smiled. Do you know a Marin Callahan? She applied for funding for her boutique mentorship program for teen girls. Seemed promising, but something about her attitude rubbed us wrong. I kept my face neutral. She's my sister. Elise blinked. Oh, I'm sorry. No need to be, I said calmly. I'm not involved in her proposal. But a week later, when the voting committee reviewed her funding application, I asked one question. What's her track record with inclusion and accountability? Turns out, Marin had no diversity policies. Had once turned away a black applicant from her mentorship group because her hair was too unprofessional. The vote was unanimous. Funding denied. I never said a word to Marin about it. I didn't need to. Some revenge happens in silence, in boardrooms with pens and policies. Meanwhile, Janine and my father are now living in a modest condo in Yonkers. They had to sell their home. The Lexus is gone. They shop at discount grocery stores now. They're learning to live within their means for the first time in their lives. Last week, my father mailed Jonah a birthday card. Handwritten. Signed. With love and respect from Dad. Not from Janine and I, just Dad. Jonah showed it to me in disbelief. They're trying, he said. I nodded. And they're not entitled to anything more than that. As for me, I finally booked that European vacation with Jonah and the boys. Tuscany in the spring. And right before we left, I opened a box from our closet. Inside was an old photo of me at age 17, holding my first paycheck and smiling next to my mom. I slipped it into the trash, because that girl thought love had to be earned with money, and I'm not her anymore.